Okay. Yeah. Hi, Sonia.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, Tanya.
How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Great.
Oh, look,
Great to be here.
who we've got here.
Hi, Maya. She's got the most expressive eyes.
Oh, absolutely. Where she says
Oh,
hi.
what a baby. This is Cleo. Meet Cleo. She's got the most batty ears. I don't know
Oh,
what's
yeah, he
happening.
does. Hi, Cleo.
Cleo, please be a good boy, okay? Stay nice and behave on the session, please.
Yes. Okay. I think we'll start. We
Yeah.
have people who've also joined in. So, all right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our live session. And I'll start with introducing Tanya, who's our guest on our session today. She's the president for Umeed for Animals Foundation. She joined them as a volunteer in 2016, and since then she's been handling the social media front for them, along with volunteer programs, managing crowdfunding campaigns, and adoptions, coordinations, and all of that. And she comes from a background of journalism and mass communication. She's also worked in the field of outdoor advertisement and editorial for the same. So, welcome, Tanya.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Thank you. And I'm representing DogSpot today. My name is Sonia. So, and our topic today that we're going to talk about is adoption, where we say why shop when you can adopt. So, Tanya, over to you. You can start with telling us maybe what the adoption scenario in India is currently.
The adoption scenario in India, I believe, is not that great as it should be because of the lack of awareness. I think since time immemorial, kids hear this. Oh, do you want to get a dog? Come, let's go to the pet shop and let's buy a pet, and that has just stuck. So on. People don't know that there are also shelters, NGOs that people can approach where there is absolutely no money involved, no profit being made, and they can give a second chance to a kid who's either been abandoned or is badly injured and is recovering there, or they could just go to the streets. And I mean, there's hundreds of strays. But all of these stigmas are there, and lack of awareness, which is what makes adoption not the scenario in India not that great. But I mean, I think the awareness is slowly seeping into the animal loving communities, cats also for that matter.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so this is what I think.
But it is
So it's
changing
getting
over the
better.
past couple of years, right?
I feel so. At least that awareness is setting in. I feel because you're interacting with the same communities, animal loving, and social media. So much power there is in social
Yes.
media, and that these topics are coming into light of why you should not be buying from breeders, and why. I mean, I think it's a question of morale. Why should there be any profit making involved in getting a companion into your family? And
Hmm.
so I think that is also a perspective that a lot of people need to question, and basically awareness of how they need not go to a shop where uh, I mean, lot of breeder we've done a lot of breeder rescues, and
Hmm.
so like we know how bad the situation can get. There's no consideration for the kids' health, and since there's a lot of mating within the litter, so the dogs come up with a whole lot of diseases. And when people buy from them and then they realize that the pup is sick or that the kid is sick, then they're abandoned. So it becomes this whole vicious circle, which so all of these things people are not really aware of. And so it's great that there are these interactions like between you and I, and on
Yeah,
more platforms
right.
which can bring to light these issues. So yeah.
And at times we also see that these maybe people who've shopped for a pet and then abandon them get into the adoption cycle as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, that is also there. A lot of times
Hmm.
we had no idea that this is what shops, pet shops, and this is what it actually, what the scenario is behind those breeders or so-called people who say, okay, we'll give it this breed. There's just a lot of preference, basically. There's this, discrimination that we see and feel super heartbroken about. So, but that's just what it is. And
Hmm.
you know
That's where we are, where adoption is in our
yeah,
country right now. Okay.
yeah.
And do you think COVID has had any impact on adoption?
A lot of negatives. So this COVID was a time where people were at home, and
Mm-hmm.
so the children were bored, and they probably said, okay, go, let's get our kid a dog. And they probably went to the shop.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would have, I think, repetitively, we had these cases of these lab pups that were being brought to us because they realized that there was something wrong with the kid. It was unwell. So many of them were parvo infected pups, and
Mm.
they were just clueless on what to do. We just thought they just thought they were getting a cute little pup, cute little
Puppy.
puppy there. And turns out that you know they were absolutely not ready for what is to come next after the kid becomes unwell.
Hmm.
So I mean, there was a situation where quicker, the online buying and selling,
Yeah.
there was a pup that was sold there, home delivered. And the family realized that we can't do this, and this then abandoned, kept with us. So I mean, a lot of people fail to realize it's a huge commitment. It's a huge commitment, like literally like getting a human a family member in, I mean, yeah, human person, human being into your family. It's close to that. It's 100%
Living
commitment.
being. Yeah. It's a commitment
Yeah,
and a
it's not
responsibility
just
in
you get
itself.
it, you give it cuddles and that's it. No. And especially if you're getting a little one, I mean, it requires constant attention, you know,
Hmm. 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 It's like
because
bringing
they
up a
will
baby
learn eventually
altogether.
everything from you.
Yeah.
Everything they'll be learning from you. They will learn from the environment that that the child is growing up in, that the kid, the furry,
Hmm.
is growing up in. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of hard work that is supposed to be put in this, which people need to keep in mind before they really realize that they would like to get a furry home.
Hmm. 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 So
So
while during COVID, of course, people must have adopted pets because, like you said, that they were at home, the kids were at home, and then they thought maybe let's just adopt a pet. But have you
there was a
already
lot of
seen?
buying for sure. Like I said,
Okay.
like it was hard on Umeed
Mm-hmm.
because there was a lot of pet shops buying, and then since a lot of these pet shops have, I mean, breeding within the same family,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
because of the genetic mutation, they
Yeah.
develop those diseases. They're more susceptible to those diseases, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. They gave up their hands that either we cannot take care, or we did not know that the pup can have such problems and complications. So and they just gave up without even
Oh.
realizing what they've done and the kind of uh, I mean, it's quite pathetic. It's, it was horrible. I mean, it was quite rampant during the COVID situation, you know,
Okay.
just
But
because
do you
people
think
were
it's
sitting
getting
at
any
home.
better? Mm-hmm. Because it's not
Better.
like it's over, right? It's just that the lockdown is over, but people are still working from home. Schools
I
haven't
think
really
times are
started.
tough. I mean,
Hmm.
of course, the cases are still there,
Yeah.
but we're at least facing a lot of trouble in terms of adoption, because I
Hmm.
believe times are tough, and lockdown was tough on quite a lot of people in terms of
Yeah.
their jobs and employment. So
Hmm.
not a lot of happening in terms of adoption. I think everyone is just into their own thing, figuring out things, uh, their
For
jobs and
themselves,
all of
maybe.
that,
Hmm.
and not a lot of engagement. But yeah, but the abandonment that was happening during COVID, excessively, repeatedly. Yeah, I don't think so. We've seen that right now, not that
Oh,
much this time.
okay. So, what would you maybe then suggest should be things that one keeps in mind when they're thinking of adopting? Like the good to haves and the must haves for sure.
First things first, you
Hmm.
and your family need to be, like I said, 100% ready for all that is to come, the good and the bad.
Hmm.
It's not some toy that we're talking about and just, for your entertainment and your boredom. It's bringing a family member into your home. So you and your family both need to be 100% sure of that, 500% sure, like no doubts there. And make sure that you're in a space that allows the kid the freedom to also be themselves and be around, and you should also be able to play around with them, have a nice garden nearby somewhere. So make sure of your locale as well for the
Hmm.
kids, um, physical health, mental health. And diet is something that we struggle explaining to people, because some of them would be strict vegetarians.
Hmm.
And while that is perfect for your lifestyle, it is not for uh, your cat or your
That.
dog. Of course, they
Hmm.
cannot have dal, roti, sabzi, and they need their proper, meat, protein diet. And so you need to be very well aware of this, and keep your lifestyle, your own dietary decision separate from that. And you need to give the animal what it really needs. Instinctively, animals is what they are, and that's
Yeah.
what they need for their nourishment. So you need to keep that in mind. Apart from that, what is as a what is mandatory, what we tell them, that they need to the kids need to be neutered or spayed. And not
Okay.
only is it good for their health overall, their temperament as well. It's let's say if it's a breed that they've adopted, then further on, let's say they're stolen or something. No breeder can use them to breed them. So it dispels, it keeps a safety check also on these aspects. So
Got it.
lot of people, so this is also something that we face. People say, what, we can't go make the dog go through that, it's their decision, it's their sex life. I mean, this is where they're talking about dogs. You cannot compare, see everything with that human perspective.
Hmm.
And dogs, or even cats for that matter, they don't need to breed. There is no requirement for their breeding, apart from the population factor. Nothing in their health or such suggests so to have an active sexual life or anything like that. So they become so shocked sometimes when we are explaining to them about this. Some of them are
Hmm.
very new to this topic, but this is also a preconditional that we have, that you need to be ready to get your pet neutered or spayed. So this is also an important factor that they need to keep in mind. Apart from that, when you'd be traveling, you need to make sure that your pet is in a safe space wherever you are.
Yeah.
And either it's a paid boarding or someone that very
Hmm.
well, very closely, that they can look after them, and very well in that interim. And yeah, and that there is basically someone, usually we only prefer we prefer families because at least then there's somebody for the kid
Yeah.
to and because they're like kids, like I said, you can't really keep them alone, and not that it'll be unsafe or anything as such, just for the mental health of the furry. We prefer families that somebody
Yeah.
is already always around. And in
Mm-hmm.
terms of puppies, it's I mean, somebody to be there constantly is absolutely 100% necessary.
Right.
And don't keep in mind the physical aspects of the kids, I mean, try and keep these stigmas away of हमको ऐसा breed चाहिए वैसा breed चाहिए. I
Hmm.
mean,
I was
we
just
can
going to
only
come to that. Yeah.
yeah, we can only
But if
hope
there's anything,
that yeah, we can only hope that you keep an open mind on these aspects of हम क्या है ये breed है क्या इसकी age है. एक तो
hmm.
so many requests we get for puppies with people don't realize there's a lot of effort and a lot of training to be given to them. And on the same side, there's a stigma against aged dogs. But
Hmm.
in terms of temperament, in terms of what you need to teach them, they're so brilliant to have as companions. So try and just when you're bringing home a kid, try and keep a very open mind about all of these things. Have as many, like, think about it that you just uh, like it's your kid basically. It's a family member. This is the first thing that you should keep in mind, that you're bringing a family member home. So
Right.
think about it the way you'll be giving them the love like that. So yeah, I believe these
Okay.
are the pointers that you should keep in mind.
Main pointers. And
Yeah.
anything you think is breed specific, maybe when one's looking at adopting? Are there breed specific things also to be kept in mind?
Breed specific, not as such. Like we would talk about like labs in general. If you have
Yeah.
the knowledge, some of them would be super hyper,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to be prepared for that. And if you're talking about breeds like golden retriever, but at Umeed, I mean, we've seen cases of all sorts. Like we've seen really temperamental golden retrievers as well. And I'll
Right.
tell you the adoption story of that later. But
Okay.
yeah, so not as such. I mean, not really as such. I mean, depends
Specific.
if it's a rescue. What also kind of
Yeah.
past that they've had is
Yeah.
something that that causes their nature to be consequential. You know,
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
if let's say if you consider labs to be the most somber and the most friendly, if it's had a very bad and abusive past, they may be really vicious and protective of themselves. They could have a really bad temperament. So you have to keep that also in mind. But other than
Right.
that, it all depends on the kind of care and love that you give. And even if it's a temperamental dog, it all depends on how much effort that you put into it, the
Hmm.
love and care you into. Because there are cases, we've had really temperamental kids getting adopted because of the effort that was put by the family
Right.
and because of the commitment. And dogs sense that. I mean, the intelligence is just so superior that
Yeah.
they are able to reflect it. They know how much a person is involved into their caregiving, and they do come
Yeah.
around. They sense that it takes time, and the human needs to understand that. And one more pointer that I'll just come back to, that people need to keep in mind: patience.
Hmm.
So when we would put out posts for, let's say, lap pups, hundreds, we put out posts for indies, hardly zero response.
Yeah. I
But
was just
lap
going to
pup,
come
we
to
would
that
get
as well.
hundreds of responses. And some of them
Hmm.
really need to just understand that um, patience is required. You have to be patient because
Hmm.
I mean, this is not an adoption process. This is a we can't really hurry this, since we're getting so many appeals. Every pointer needs to be checked in whether we think that, and we're strict about it, we're stringent about it, we're firm about it because we want the best family for them. So I think
Right.
that is also something that they need to be really patient about the
Yeah.
whole thing. We can't just say, okay, no, we've spoken to you, now you come and take the kid. No, it's not
Yeah. It
like
doesn't
that.
work like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, which
So
is a very
there's
interesting
usually
point that you brought up, Tanya, on these breed-specific adoptions. Still understandable, like you saying, the minute you put something for maybe like a lab to get adopted, or a beagle, or any of these breeds that are well known and most preferred, you will have a lot of queries, etc. But what about indie adoptions? How do people react or behave towards that? Yeah.
almost like zero response, I would say.
Mm, okay.
And I mean, again, and awareness, people, there's so many issues that we hear people coming from, that, oh, they're not letting us feed strays. So in majorly societies, it's there where people consider, oh, ye to halla machate hain, ye logo kaatte hain. So that engagement is not there per se, strays and societies. It's not
Mm-hmm.
as much, and that just reflects then later on when it comes to indie adoptions. And sure, there'll be amazing feeders, and we've had virtual parents also
Okay.
for indies at Umeed. We've had that. But again, in terms of adoption, just because of that, the whole discrimination comes into that factor, that breed nahi hai, and purebred, all that show off bazi happens. So yeah, it's the engagement is not much when it comes to indies. But again, we can only request people that engage outdoors, and
Yeah.
if you know someone who is perhaps a regular at feeding, or you can join. There's so many online groups, Facebook groups you can join, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a mass. The information out there is a mass. Join them. Go with it gradually.
Yeah.
Interact with them, and see how they go about it. So that's what we can request. I mean, strays have the strongest immunity. You would
Oh, yes.
rarely ever see them get sick, and they're super intelligent. So the one that my friend is fostering, that I just had in my hand, Cleo, he is already has his pee timings and poop timings fixed. So he would
Mm-hmm.
just have to make the small moan sound, and okay, he right now needs to go and
Needs
pee.
to go.
So it's inherent in them. So there are these
Yeah.
little things about, and memory. So amazing story Nikhil told me is that
Hmm.
I think once he must have fed years ago, 3 years ago, he fed an indie near this just before Mega Mall,
Hmm.
and he was just passing by that area again, and that dog just followed him about 4 or 5 kilometers and went right to his home,
Wow.
just stationed herself right outside his home. So they have this amazing memory as well, and all it needs is that kindness to be
Yeah.
shown, which
Yeah.
isn't. I've seen them. I've seen people treat them as pests, or just
Hmm.
shoo and this and that. So all they require is that kindness, I think, and you
A
would
lot of
have the
love.
most intelligent and healthy companion. So people need to know all of these things.
Yeah. Okay, we have a few comments. So, hi Minty, hi Seema, hi Anvesha, hi Juhi. Oh, Juhi also commented saying that people buy pets and abandon them when the pet falls sick or grows old, like you were just saying. And that is
Yeah.
indeed the most upsetting situation. So, yes, completely agreed, Juhi. And hi Ranjit. And oh, Vipul says, see, nowadays people are thinking of adopting indies more, but they just need to know about the different indie breeds. So you were giving an example.
Indie breeds.
Hmm.
Not as such. I
Huh.
mean, again, like I personally don't understand this entire fascination with breeds. I mean, if I tomorrow if I visit the shelter, if I visit the center, for me all
Hmm.
the kids are the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the kind of connection that you make. It's all about the connection that you have with the kid.
Hmm.
Stop. I would only tell people to stop looking at as a breed perspective.
Right.
ब्रीड की बात कर रहे हैं, आप पहाड़ों में चले जाओ, वहां पर गद्दी कुत्ते हैं, देयर आर
Hmm.
गद्दी डॉग्स देयर विच
Yeah.
shepherds keep for their
Yeah.
sheep.
We keep them.
Okay, now that is one
Yeah.
scenario in a, I would say, fairly less civilized society, because they have
Yeah.
it's very specific to their needs. In
Hmm.
cities you
Hmm.
don't have these kind of needs, we are not following sheep or anything like that. So sometimes I just wonder, where is all of this fascination coming from? What status symbol is this that is so rampant in cities? It perplexes me. So again, in indie breeds, I'm sorry, it's not something that I understand or see from my perspective. They're all the same for me. Like I said, even in certain breeds that you consider could be really somber, they also have
Yeah.
their own temperament, vis-a-vis what they faced earlier before coming to the center or whatever
Hmm.
happens. They've been abandoned, they faced abused. Even the
Yeah.
most loving breeds that you
Traumatic.
consider can become so vicious.
Yeah.
So
Because of the trauma
I
that they've
don't
gone
think so.
through.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and
So
same with
see,
strays, if you see in the society that they're super vicious, it's because people have been pelting stones at them, and
yeah.
that's just how they protect themselves. So you need to
Hmm.
understand this.
Whole psychology of sorts or
Yeah,
their behavior and the reason
absolutely,
behind it.
absolutely.
Okay. So Seema asks, hi Seema, is it true that Indies don't like being indoors and they prefer their freedom? And being indoors, you fee regulations can make them neurotic.
Mm,
Wait, at that, I'd like to just show you an indie who doesn't mind being indoors at all. That
I
can you see
can
her?
show you Cleo as well.
Yeah, that is Maya. She absolutely loves being indoors and her bed.
Yeah,
So that is one.
it's the way, again. It's the way you treat them.
Yeah,
It's I mean, they also become, of course, they become reliant on you. They know that you're feeding them, you're caring for them. So
absolutely.
why would they long for some of them? Like, okay, of course, if you're adopting an indie, a full grown indie, and of course they used to, first of all, they're used to being scavengers. They know, yeah, say they're getting food, so that takes time to settle in. But it's all about how you work with their behavior. So it's dependent on your relationship with them, purely on how much care you give for them. And yeah, that's it. No specific as such that they prefer their freedom. It's just because that the grown up ones have been used to that kind of lifestyle. So yes, it does take time for them to adjust. But I would say, even for that matter, any other breed, imagine them being abandoned at the center for years, and then suddenly they're being
Hmm.
brought home. Adjustment also, even they're making a huge psychological adjustment
Yeah,
to being in a home, and that is what foster helps us gauge.
right. Sharat, yes, we mean Indian breeds, not a variety of dogs. Okay. Then Seema also mentions that she had two rescued indies but had to send the male away to a friend's place because he displayed aggression towards the pets in the society. And some people, including her husband, whom he mauled badly. So, yeah, this could be a case like you were mentioning in terms of aggression or maybe what he'd gone through earlier.
Always in these cases, get more advice from trainers. You know, try engage, get more knowledge on the fact. Like, do your best. It's
Right.
I mean, never an option to, if a kid is showing aggression, you just abandon. Do everything that you can, and before become the option of abandoning them. So always best to work with them, work with trainers, work with people at the center, get their help to understand them, and then accordingly try and arrange a foster if possible in these cases.
Okay. And how would you maybe talk about or explain adoption and fostering,
So these are two things
or the
that
main
go hand in
difference?
hand,
Yeah.
and fostering gives a very good insight on how the kid behaves in a family, in a home. At the center, you're not able to really gauge their temperament, when they're
Hmm.
around so many dogs, around so many other animals. But the foster helps you see how the kid is like with the family in the home. So the more fosters there are, the more people come up and vouch for fostering, the more it helps with adoptions.
Mm-hmm.
So apart from that, there's also medical fostering, like somehow that you wish to contribute to your community animals. You see there's an injured animal there. If you think you can foster them and rehabilitate them in your home or somebody that you know, that's also a great way that you can contribute in terms when we talk about foster. So, and of course, it allows you to make that connection with the animal. And if you're already someone looking to adopt, then of course, as in Umid, we call it a foster failure, then you're their adopted parent. So,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And okay. So we could maybe now go through some of the adoption stories. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So this is Myra.
Yeah. uh, Myra's got a she had a very harrowing story, a breeder rescue.
Mm-hmm.
And she had this huge uh, tumor in the stomach.
Okay.
And this was around 2017. And we found this beautiful family. And they're so particular about now sharing, I mean, celebrating her birthday. So every time we're getting these really cute pictures of
Nice.
the cake made for her. And
Wow.
this picture right here is of her birthday, I think in 2018 or yeah,
Okay.
2018. And we posted again for her in this year that they celebrated in November itself, her birthday.
Wow.
So yeah, that's
Okay.
that's Myra,
That's
lovely
Myra. And
girl.
how old is she?
She's about 3 years old. Yeah,
Oh,
three
okay.
years.
Okay. And this is Paddy.
Paddy. So Paddy has also had a very long, harrowing journey.
Mm-hmm.
Again, golden retriever, but he had temperamental issues. He was very aggressive. He
Okay.
would bite a lot,
Okay.
and the the owners just gave up. They
Mm-hmm.
left them, and he was there in Umid for 2 years. I think he was 2016. He was rescued, and then this lovely family, and who found us, who found Paddy. And it just did not happen miraculously, that Paddy's making this connection, and this he has also bitten them also. But then again, it's that commitment from them. They worked really hard on his temperament, and he's this cutie boy now, and always they're sending pictures. This lovely cutie, sometimes cuddling on the bed. So yeah,
Oh,
that's
nice.
another. Yeah, they've
And how
had to
old is
work hard.
Paddy?
Paddy is also about, I think, 3 to
Okay.
4 years old. Yeah, I
Oh.
think more, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's Chotu. This
Chotu
is
has had an amazing, amazing story.
mm-hmm.
So in 2016, he was rescued from Sector 55 in Gurgaon, and he was an aged dog. He was 8 years old at that time in 2016, and so he was rescued by one of our team members. And he also then, I mean, we found a foster for him after some time.
Okay.
And then when we put up the adoption appeal for Chotu, so another family contacted saying that this is the one that got abducted from us. So he's
Oh.
he's our boy. And so we got the whole story checked in, and they also identified the marks and all of those,
Hmm.
and they checked out. And though Foster had really fallen in love with Chotu, but he gave the most amazing reaction. First of all, when the family was brought in, he went
Okay.
crazy. He went
Wow.
crazy, jumping around and rubbing his nose here and there. And the way, when you come back home and your dogs react. So this is the way.
Yeah.
That's how we got to know that, yeah, this is the family. So that
Oh.
was
Wow.
some sort of miracle, I guess you could say,
Hmm.
that happened with Chotu. And yeah, luckily he was saved. and he's
Wow,
he's
great.
still there with the family. He's
So he's about 12 now.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Nice to meet Chotu. And then we've got Pepper.
Oh yes, Pepper. So this one's in Indy, and
Mm-hmm.
Pepper's mom was Lucy, and
Okay.
she had some pregnancy complications, and
Mm-hmm.
none of the litter survived. She had to go under C-section surgery. So
Okay.
Pepper was the one that survived, and then Sandeep out here uh, adopted her. And
Mm-hmm.
then a few years ago, about 2 years ago, he even adopted the mother, Lucy,
Oh,
on
wow.
Pepper's birthday. And they had the most amazing traveling stories. Wonder Paw is the name on Instagram, and he's taking them around everywhere and
Mm-hmm.
to the mountains. And here, it's amazing to watch. It's brilliant when the parents, send us all of these lovely photos and videos
Yeah.
of the kid being so happy, and you feel so accomplished that, oh, there is something that, good has you've done in your life, and that there's this kid who's been given a second chance is
Yeah.
one of the best feelings in the world, I would say, when someone's been through a very harrowing past, a kid has gone through so much, and then you
Mm.
see him or her finally happily settled with a
Yeah.
family that is giving them so much love and affection. It's brilliant. So yeah.
Wow. Nice. And then we have Shera.
Yeah, so Shera was another breeder rescue,
Okay.
and there were signs of abuse. He was
Mm-hmm.
very um, not really willing to mingle around, but he was super, super docile,
Okay.
Shera, and we found this lovely family now with him. So that was also a miracle story.
Wow. And how
So
old is he?
Shera is about 3 years,
Okay.
yeah, 2 to 3 years old.
Okay. Thanks, Tanya. That was interesting to see these adoption stories, a few of them. And before we wrap up, or we don't have any comments that we've not addressed, okay? And how about volunteers in Umeed? Is there anything you want to maybe talk about a little on the volunteering overall in animal welfare?
Absolutely. We
Hmm.
always require help. I mean, we need help with there is so much awareness to be spread on all of these topics that you and I have just discussed. So,
Hmm.
in terms of social media, like recently we invited also um, artists to come up and help with the shelter, paint it, and graffiti. Use all of their creativity regarding animal welfare, adoption. So we always require help in terms of that. Then medical rescues,
Hmm.
SOS, the tons of ways that you can help us. So you can always reach out to our Instagram page. You can always send in a message.
Sure.
And yeah, tons of ways you can help out.
Right. And overall, how do you think is the volunteering in animal welfare working out so far?
A lot of people reach out. A lot of people reach
Hmm.
out. Um, I mean, but the follow up later sometimes is not there. But it's good. Like I feel happy. Like we get a lot of emails and calls and messages, and people would like to help out. Right now, I think we are always in need of adoption volunteers. So first of all, our rescues are like 90 plus, and ideally I mean, it's our dream to have all of them adopted. Shelters need to, I mean, shelters need to be cleared. Ideally, there should be no dogs on the streets, no animals, no stray animal on the street or in the shelter. So ideally, I mean, it's our dream to have them all adopted, but you know, the strays adapt, but the breeds they find it difficult to. They either want that one person to person contact.
Hmm.
So I think that's one volunteer position that we're always looking out for. Those individuals who can really help us find families for our rescues, and yeah, I guess anyone who would be willing to help us with finding those families are open to reach out to us via email or on Instagram or Facebook. So we're always open to those people who'd be interested in saying.
Okay. All right. And okay, so Seema had a question. We've just shared your Insta handle also, where she wanted a suggestion for some force-free trainers or behaviorists with experience in indie streeties.
Okay.
So they can maybe
Okay.
get in touch. Yeah.
Sure,
Sorry.
sure.
So we've shared the Insta handle
Yeah, it's
for
Umid for animals.
yeah.
You can always, or
We've
you
put that
can
in the
email
comments. Yeah.
us. Great.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Tanya, for being with us
Thank you
today,
so much. Thank you.
and we'll speak soon again. Thank
Thank
you,
you so much.
everybody.
Thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you so much.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks. Thanks. Bye.